Imagine this, you've been friends with somebody for years and now you're their boss. Sounds like a bit of a recipe for disaster, right? Well, it doesn't have to be. Today we're going to talk about some of the unique challenges that you might strike if you become your friend's boss. The biggest challenge, which is probably obvious, is going to be negotiating that tricky pathway between being friends and then being their boss. To prevent this being a big deal, I'm going to dive into some tips that I have used in my relationships where I have been promoted and become bosses to my friends, and how I navigated these. The first thing I did was set boundaries. Now, this can be a real challenge, particularly if you've been really close friends with somebody and there's someone that you let off steam to a little bit and have a bit of a laugh with about work stuff. Now, if you're really close friends with this person, you can probably approach this quite openly and have that discussion before you go into the role about, well, this is going to be a bit awkward and we're going to have to navigate this together. And hopefully, if they're close friends, it'll be easier to kind of slide away from that relationship in the work environment. Now, if you aren't really close friends, but you enjoy chatting, then you might want to play it a little less intensely than having a one-on-one discussion about it. And just slowly start backing off a bit. If you're chatting, just remember your role and deviate the conversation away from any topics that could be construed as inappropriate in your new role, such as talking about other colleagues. Sometimes it's as simple as just saying less. So instead of getting involved in lots of conversations, you're actually just saying nothing and they're doing most of the talking. And gradually that will reduce that relationship from being a chatty colleague relationship to being more of a manager-leader relationship. There is also the obvious, avoiding any office gossip with them, keeping conversations that aren't work-related to a minimum inside work time. The second thing is remembering that even if you are friends or are friends, it's really important to maintain professional boundaries at work. This means avoiding favoritism and treating everybody fairly. You might find this a little bit of a challenge at first. Sometimes if you go into a leadership role after being a peer, there can be a little bit of an expectation that you're going to be easier on those that consider themselves your friends. You need to be really careful to ensure that you don't fulfill that expectation, and also how it looks to others in terms of what they're seeing you doing or behaving like with individuals that they knew you were friends with. If you are having a quiet conversation on the side to someone who everyone had previously seen you being really friendly with, the perception can be that you're still maintaining those friendships and that you could be treating them differently to everybody else. To help build this boundary and improve that perception that others may have of you treating what is considered your friends as differently to everybody else, it's important to try and set that expectation really early. Try not to be in lots of additional chats with those people. Don't have additional meetings outside of what would be expected with them unless it's required. And really try and keep front of mind that you want to show that you're going to treat everybody fairly and that you're not treating any individual differently to others. The first few months will be really crucial to help build that trust and respect. Remember that your team will be watching you and looking for signs that you may be treating others differently to how you're treating them. You can also check out my video on the screen, which is about how everyone is watching you in your leadership role and how to navigate being under that kind of scrutiny. Another key dynamic that is difficult when you go from a peer to a leader and you have friends in that team is navigating difficult conversations. Difficult conversations are inevitable in a leadership role, even with friends. The key approach is always to consider empathy, respect, and trying to navigate to a positive outcome for everybody. However, there's no getting around it. If you have to have a difficult conversation with someone who was previously your friend, it is going to be a challenge. This is why it's really important, as soon as your role changes, that you're starting to build those clear boundaries and expectations with those individuals who you were friendly with. And this could mean having difficult conversations with these individuals if it's required. And if you know that you're going to need to do this, it is better to do it early. It is going to be difficult, and it is definitely going to change your relationship if you have to go straight into having a difficult conversation with an individual that you were a friend with. My advice is always to do it as early as you can. It is far easier to have a conversation with someone that is more low level and not too intense. It can also be far more casual if you're catching it at the really early stages. So if a previous friend of yours is now someone that reports to you and you've noticed that they're turning up to work late, I would get onto this straight away. And I would make it kind of casual in a, hey, I noticed that you seem to be struggling to get to work on time this week. Is everything okay with you? That way it's very low level, you're not going in with, you need to be here at 8:30 and why are you late every day? It is far more casual, because if it's only been that week or a few days, hopefully the casual conversation can pull them out of it really quickly and it's not a big deal. However, it is really important to get onto it and get onto it quickly, because you're also going to be watched by the other team members who are complaining and annoyed that somebody is turning up late. It helps build that perception that you're not treating them any differently to anybody else. Because if you do let them away with it and you feel too uncomfortable to have that difficult conversation, you're setting a pretty low bar for everyone else on the team to live up to. I have been in the situation where I have been promoted to be the boss of someone who had previously been a good friend in the team and somebody who I talked to and let off steam with, and it was definitely awkward. It changed our relationship. Our relationship was obviously never the same again. However, for me to do a good job, it needed to change. I couldn't be acting as their peer and also be someone that they reported to. The biggest lesson that I learned through that experience was to tackle it head on and right at the start with just that casual conversation was, hey, super awkward now, I'm going to be your boss. Obviously this is going to change things. Hopefully it's not such a big deal though, and we can still work together really well. And then left it at that and just gradually pulled away a little bit more each day. So can you be the boss of your friend? Definitely, but with some caveats. It'll take careful navigation to ensure that A, the perception of others is that you're treating everybody equally, and B, that you're not slipping into the habit of treating them differently in your mind because they're actually a friend of yours. I think keeping up that professional boundary between work and your personal life is really important. It is pretty tricky to have really close friends that report to you. And I would say that if you know somebody and have known somebody for a really long time and they end up reporting to you, you may want to think about putting in a really clear strategy with them on how you're going to navigate that relationship. Be sure to check out the video linked on your screen about how to have those difficult conversations as a leader with some practical tips to support you. And let me know in the comments if you've had to navigate being the boss of one of your friends and how you overcame this. And thanks very much for watching.